Good morning, children. In today's class, we learn the poetic devices used in the poem A Tiger in the Zoo. So, what are poetic devices? Poetic devices are some techniques or tools which are used to create rhythm or to enhance the poem's meaning, or sometimes to intensify the mood or feeling of the poet. So, the bottom line is poetic devices are used to bring more beauty and more meaning to the poem. So in this class we are going to learn the poetic devices used stanza by stanza. So in the first stanza there are so many poetic devices used by the poet. The first one is rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme used here is ABCB, and the colors also will represent that they are different from each other. If you observe that the rhyme scheme is ABCB, that means stripes, the last word of the first sentence, stripes. The pronunciation, the sound of the last word is different. So we give the first alphabet A, and second line last word is cage, stripes, cage. It is different from the sound of the first line. So we need to give a different alphabet, which is B. And going to the third line, quite again different from the first and second line. So we have to give another new alphabet. And coming to the fourth line, rage. This sound is similar to the last word of second line, cage, rage. So we should give same letter to this. So the rhyming scheme becomes ABCB. This is the first poetic device used in this stanza. And the next one is personification. Personification means any object or an animal which is personified, means compared with the qualities of a human being, then we call it as personification. That means the object or the animal are represented by the human qualities or with the human names. For example, generally animals, when we refer them as it. But in this poem, the poet had mentioned the tiger as he. That means the poet has personified tiger as a male human being. So that's the reason he mentioned as he. So the tiger is personified here. And another poetic device used is metaphor. Metaphor means comparison, comparing one thing with another thing. So here the comparison used is tiger's paws. Tiger's paws are very smooth like velvet cloth. So that smoothness was compared with velvet cloth. This is metaphor, and the words used here are pads of velvet. Pads means the paws of tiger. Velvet means velvet cloth. And the fourth poetic device used here is imagery. Imagery means creating an image of the content which the poet is trying to explain. So here the poet tried to create an image about the tiger so that you can imagine it. What is the tiger doing and how is the tiger looks? So he mentions here that the tiger is in bright colors and it looks healthy by mentioning vivid stripes, bright stripes. That means it tells that the tiger has very good skin, very good texture, it's healthy. And also, what is the tiger doing? It is walking. So you can imagine when you read these sentences, you will imagine what the tiger does. So this technique is called as imagery. And the next technique used in this stanza is consonants. Consonants means using the S sound words. S sound words means which ends with S sound. Stacks, his, stripes. These are the words which he used. There are other words also like steps. This is also another word which the poet used, and this technique is called as consonants. And another technique used by the poet in this stanza is oxymoron. Oxymoron means two adjectives which are opposite in meaning are used example here, quiet rage. Quiet means being calm, and rage, anger. These two are two opposite words, but the poet used them to tell that the tiger is very angry because it was kept in the cage, but it could not show his anger because he cannot show his strength since he was in the cage. So inside it is angry, but outside it is trying to show that it is very calm and walking. So this is called another technique, oxymoron. Going to the next stanza. In this stanza, um, the two techniques which we discussed already, rhyme scheme and imagery also used. The rhyme scheme is ABCB. And coming to the imagery, here also in this, when the poet is talking about the tiger which is in the forest, he mentions the tiger as he. So that is, and also he says that he mentions the tiger as he. So when you use the concept of he, what do we call it? Personification. It was used throughout the poem. That is the reason I did not mention here. He mentions this. Imagery. Imagery means here also the poet gives an image of the tiger when he talks about the tiger by mentioning the activities of the tiger, like lurking in the shadow, it was hiding in shadow, or it was sliding through the long grass, or standing near the water hole. So these are the, when we mention that, we just imagine a tiger which is sliding in the grass or hiding somewhere, or near the water hole. So these things will give us an imagination how the tiger is there in the forest. So these two are the techniques which we used in the previous stanza. So what are the new other two techniques here used were enzament. Enzament is very easy concept. That means, enzament means line continues to next line without punctuation marks. So here the in a other meaning, what we can say is enzament means a technique in poetry whereby a sentence is carried over to the next line without a pause. That means a sentence is continued to the next line without any kind of punctuation marks, a comma or semicolon. Nothing was used. It is a continuation. So here if you observe the three sentences from second, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plum deer pass. These these three should be considered as single sentence. So this is called as enzament. And another technique used here is alliteration. Alliteration is a technique where it's the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of two or more words immediately succeeding each other or at short intervals. I mean repetition of consonant sounds, especially which consonant sound? Some P here. It was used P here. So, and those repetition of consonant sounds sometimes beginning of two or more words immediately. That means those two words used one by one, or maybe within short intervals, maybe after a word. So if you see that plum deer pass, plum pass, plum pass, both are consonant sounds. In between short interval means in between only one word is there. P, P. This is a technique called alliteration. And moving on to the third one. In the third stanza, again rhyme scheme we learned. Here the rhyme scheme is ABCB. And another technique we just learned is enzament. If you look at the poem, the first sentence and first line and second line are continued. There was no any kind of punctuation mark used to separate first line and second line. So it is called enzament. And another three different literary devices we learned today are onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia means using words which denote sound. Sound means animals, they make sounds, they cannot talk like us. So we say that dog, it barks. And cat, what kind of sound cat makes? Meow, mew sound. And when you talk about a frog, we say that it makes ribbit ribbit sound. And tigers and lions, they roar. And if you talk about hen, cock a doodle doo, we say them as the sounds made by those animals. So here in this stanza he used snarling, the sound made by the tiger. Snarling means what? Snarling here used in this sentence where when the tiger was going around, snarling is nothing but growling, making a sound, a big sound to threaten the people in the village, a growl. So that growl sound was used with words. So you can imagine that the tiger was making sounds and going around the village. So this concept is onomatopoeia. And another concept used is assonance. Assonance means use of vowel sound O and I. That means there are certain words where O and I sounds were used. Shirt, around, houses, bearing, his, white, his. And the last one which we learned today is consonants. Consonants is nothing but use of consonant sound yes. The S sound is there. His, fangs, his, claws. This one we learned in the first stanza also. So these are the different literary devices used in these first three stanzas.